Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 345 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the second-minute podcast that has a little bit for everyone. I'm Repeal. And with me tonight, the greatest hostess in the entire world, the universe, the mall, Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
The mall?
The mall.
Oh, them all.
No.
I thought you were saying...
I did actually say the mall, but we can also say them all.
Is this because we were talking about Blues Brothers earlier?
Probably. I don't know. It popped into my head. Don't ask how my brain works. I don't know how it works.
You are a strange, sad little man.
I'm not sad. I'm happy.
How am I doing? I'm doing better than last week. So, that's an improvement. And I really don't have a whole lot more to report. I always feel strange getting into my own personal drama about this anyway, because, I'm sure you're going to tell me that, no, listeners like to hear, but in my mind, I'm going, they tune in to listen to Second Amendment news, not to hear me whinge about whatever's going on. So I always feel strange about that. But, okay, alright, here's something that I think they will be interested in. So, gosh, it was last week. I want to say it was Tuesday. I want to say it was like the day after we recorded. I got a knock at my door fairly early in the morning, and, Mom never does that. And so anytime she knocks on the door, it's like, oh crap, what's going on? And, she's there saying, and the story has a good ending, so don't freak out, listeners. She's there saying that, she is taking our dog to the vet, and our dog Precious might not come back. So she debated whether or not to wake me up, but she figured that I would want to say goodbye because I can always get back to sleep, but I can't say goodbye to a dead dog. And I was like, yeah, you made the right decision. And so I petted her and said goodbye, and I asked what was going on. And Precious had been not eating and vomiting and not feeling well, and she was like born in, I want to say 2009. She is an old dog. She's something like 14, 15 years old. She's well over 100 years, in human years. And so, I'm a worrywart, and I come by it honestly because my mom is also a worrier, and Mom consulted Dr. Google, and Dr. Google said that it might be stomach cancer. And, to be fair, we've lost a lot of dogs to cancer because, well, cancer's the thing that gets you if other things don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she was taking Precious to the vet, and she was just convinced that we were going to be told that she had stomach cancer and was going to be put down. And so that's just a hell of a way to start my day, especially because, as you well know, Weer'd, I am not a morning person, and to be woken out of a sound sleep and be given that heavy news is just like, okay, yeah, it's going to be that kind of day. And so, I'm still trying to come to terms with being awake, let alone what this means. And then when Mom comes back a couple hours later, Precious comes in, and I was like, I didn't expect that. And Mom said, well, we get to keep her for a few days at least, because the vet thinks that it's pancreatitis, and we're waiting on some tests. And in the meantime, we've been given some medication to help with, to settle her stomach, and antibiotics. Not really sure why, but just a panoply of drugs. And so, okay, then we had this sword of Damocles hanging over us for like a day or two, and then we did get the word that the test came back that it was pancreatitis, and Precious responded well to the medication. She's mostly got her appetite back at this point. She's got a lot of energy, because this is a dog who pulls and is just ready to get home after a walk. And this time she was walking right beside us. She was healing in a way she's never done before. And so we could tell she didn't have a whole lot of energy. But to all outward appearances, she's fine. I mean, and as Mom pointed out, because again, we're all fatalistic here in this family. This doesn't rule out stomach cancer. She could still have that, but at least it's not it wasn't killing her right then. So that's an insight into, my family's psychology, and also that was a thing that happened last week. Last week was pretty stressful for me, but that one at least turned out well.
Well, you had told me all of this, but the last part, and I told you to give me an update. And as soon as I heard you realized that this was about Precious, I went, "Oh, I haven't got an update. No update is a good update." So I'm pleased to hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm dealing with other things. Next time, just go ahead and nag me. I don't mind.
No, I would have, but it is fine. You told me at exactly the right moment for you to tell me.
Okay, great.
And and I'll just say, I'm glad she's doing well. And I will also say, I'm a vet tech, but
practically a doctor.
But I'm practically a doctor. Is that yes, she could have stomach cancer, but it is medically indetectable stomach cancer because they absolutely ran a full panel of it and looked at her. And I don't know if she got X-rays or not, but
I don't know either, but she cost us like $400-$500.
Yeah, so she probably got an X-ray. I mean, that's what I would have done. Is just done a quick X-ray with contrast just to see if there was any vascular growth anywhere in the abdominal region or intestinal region, and she probably, it was like when it turned out that the thing in my wife's head was a brain tumor, is one of those things of that's kind of scary, but it was a very, very low grade, and people had been looking at it for years through the various scans, and it wasn't until it was actually physically taken out of her head that we actually knew what it was. And it's one of those many of us could all have a brain tumor. And so you just don't know until you look or have symptoms. So for Precious, they looked, they didn't find it. So
good.
So I'm glad to hear that she's doing better.
Yeah, me too. So that's me. How are you doing, Weer'd?
I'm doing great. I'm just back from a little mini vacation. We went up to our place in New Hampshire, and it was my wife's idea for Mother's Day. She wanted to go up there and have herself some quality relaxation, and quality relaxation was had, and good times, and I love it up there. It's just we're right on the river, right by the mountains, and when my wife and I talk about terrain that we can live in, and I will say, no judgment to those of you who live on or enjoy the desert or the plains, but I do not like them. They bother me, and so it's one of those being on the ocean is, I like being on the ocean, but also I like being on the mountains and near water, lots of water. So it was we had a whole lot of fun. Went out walking in the woods when the weather was cooperating, and my wife went down to the spa, and my daughter had all sorts of great Mother's Day gifts for her. It was we had a really good time, and now we are home. And so
you said you went to your place. I mean, I don't think you're rich enough to own a vacation home. Is this like a timeshare, a rental?
It is what's called a fractional ownership, which is kind of most of the best parts of a timeshare, and with a lot of the bad stuff scraped off. Essentially, it's we have a suite in a resort, and we own part of it. So some weeks we can go and some weeks we can't. And the weeks that we can go, we can either choose to go, or we can tell them that we're not going to be there. And, the hotel will rent them out to just regular hotel guests, and we get a cut of the money.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And it's a hotel room. So on one hand, we can't decorate it or change the furniture or do that sort of stuff, and we have a storage locker in the basement, but so everything that we want to keep up there, we have to pack up and bring down when we leave. But it also means that like if a rock band decides to rent our unit and completely trash the place, that's not our problem. They will clean it all up and fix all of that and use their insurance if they need to, or use their litigation if they need to, and it'll all be back to as well as it can as soon as possible. So it's
awesome.
nice.
Okay.
So yeah, good times. But shall we dive into some news?
I don't know why that struck me as funny, but it did. Sure. Let's dive into the news, both good and bad.
Yes. So first up, we've got it's bad, but it's one of those like
we knew it was coming.
And that is let's see. There was of course we know Washington State. It used to be one of those blue states that was actually pretty good with guns, and now I don't think there really are any anymore. Where they have passed a whole suite of horrible gun control laws, one of which is a ban on high capacity magazines, and I believe it's a total ban. Like you just can't have them at all, much like California. And so
there is a grandfather clause.
Okay, well that's good. That's good. And so I think actually California's has been stayed so that at least until the courts are done ruling on it, people can hold on to their magazines going through. I don't think anyone has had to either destroy or face the consequences of owning pre-ban magazines. But yeah, there was a case held against it, and as you said, we kind of expected it. Is on the in the Washington State level, of course, it's going to go in the favor of the high capacity magazine bans. Yeah, we know. Well, Massachusetts has ruled on multiple times that assault weapons are perfectly fine to ban, and that's to be expected. So it's
well now. See, I thought I read that there was a grandfather clause, but now that I'm looking it over, I'm not seeing it. So there we go. They didn't say the magical word grandfather clause. However, people who already own, quote, high-capacity magazines, end quote, can keep them. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just I don't ever want to give wrong information.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So that's gone through, and that's gone through, but it just means that it's going to be moving up to the next level, which is the only place where it was likely going to get. It would be a shocking news story if the Washington's High Court struck down their anti-gun laws.
And I know that this is going to be challenged, if for no other reason than Second Amendment Foundation is in Washington State. Mm-hmm. I want to say Seattle. So, it's in their home state. Of course, they're going to fight this. And they will. I don't know if they will actually appeal it up to SCOTUS, but if that's possible, they'll try.
Yeah. And of course, meanwhile, there's also the several court cases that everyone's waiting to see if the Supreme Court will take on, that are assault with ban cases that include magazine bans. So there is also a chance that somebody else will get in ahead of them and essentially make this case moot.
Are you talking like
Ocean State Tactical is one, yeah. And then the other one is I'm terrible at the actual names of it. It's the is it the Illinois case?
I mean, for a moment I thought it was Wolford v. Lopez, but no, that's about the sensitive places.
I could look up. I mean, if you want to know the name of it, look up. Go to Costas Moros's Twitter page and scroll back till you get to Monday, and you'll hear him lamenting that again the courts have not taken the case up. Uh-huh. But him, like many of the other Second Amendment lawyers, set their alarm early in the morning so that they could get up and go and see if it's official.
I think he said something like he gets up early in the morning to be disappointed.
Yes. Yeah, he's photoshopped his face onto Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. And note that, again, it's just not happening.
But we do have a couple of bills, national, that look good. And so Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I thought I would start off. We'll get the grim news out of the way, and we'll move forward. But essentially, one thing I wanted to point out: the Short Act, which is the essentially the pistol brace ban. There's a bill that would remove that, and the Hearing Protection Act, which would take suppressors off of of which we've got a little bit more to talk about but would take suppressors off the NFA. These bills have been reintroduced. They've been reintroduced on multiple occasions, and we're getting this from Gun Owners of America, and a number of other people are reporting this, but these are the ones that actually put it on their website instead of on a social media platform. Is that these bills have gone into the Ways and Means Committee, and there is a serious risk that they might get killed in committee, and so they are urging people to contact your House representation to let them know that these are good bills and that they should be released.
Mm-hmm.
But now, do we want to move on to the good bills?
I mean, I thought these were good bills.
Well, those were good bills, but the fact that it's bad news that they're in committee, that they're not heading out for a floor vote, because a lot of people are saying that unless a whole bunch of people that have spoken good things about the Second Amendment but are going to suddenly get either geeked out by pistol braces or suppressors, it should go through.
Mm. Okay, so that was a good bill, but there are better bills.
Yes.
Okay.
And so this one here, actually, did I put this here or did you put this here? I think I must.
It wasn't me.
Okay, but
I mean, given what it's about, I would suspect Oddball is involved.
Very possibly, or yeah, is the.
I mean, it's about knives, dude. You know, Oddball is part of this.
Though I will have to say that I have started ever since the ban on switchblades has been removed from Massachusetts, I have gotten quite the addiction to them. To which my wife and daughter both refer to my switchblades as my fidget spinners. But yeah, evidently Delaware is also headed on the way of really much of the United States. I haven't actually looked to see the automatic knife ban. I know that Maine and New Hampshire. I haven't looked in Vermont, but Maine and New Hampshire do not have restrictions on automatic knives, and so I often will have one of my automatic knives on me. When I was in New Hampshire this weekend, I had one of my automatic knives on me, and of course the Massachusetts ban was ruled on Second Amendment grounds. So in theory, any place can cite this as a reason for the restrictions to be lifted. And so, yeah, this is very, 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 very good news.
Okay, have you actually talked about what the bill is?
It is. I'm sorry, I have hinted around enough that people can guess, but they are trying to remove the restriction on switchblades in Delaware.
Mm-hmm. So there was an exemption that was carved out in Delaware law when talking about knives that said folding. So you could have your pocket knives, but not any sort of automatic knife. And so all this bill does is deletes the word folding so that it covers all types of knives. And then it's not all that it does. It also increases the length from 3 inches to 3 3/4, which, I mean, doesn't seem like a big deal to me, but I am not a knife person. I'm sure to knife people, that's a huge deal.
It certainly opens up a whole lot more. I mean, I would argue that of my daily carry folding knives, the blade length goes from about 2.5 inches for some of my really, really small ones to I think I've got a couple that are like almost 5. And so a 5-inch folding knife is pretty big. But yes, you're laughing. Get your mind out of the gutter, Paulette.
I mean, 5 inches is the national average last I checked.
But I have found that like 4 inches is kind of like when I'm looking at a knife that I'm buying like online, it's not, where I'm not actually physically handling it to know how big it is. Like 4 inches is kind of that middle of the road blade length. And so this kind of captures most of that. So that's nice.
Okay.
It'd be nicer if it went up to 5, so that all but the most ridiculous folding knives like Oddball's Espada would be covered as well. But again, it's in the right direction.
Okay.
And and actually they got it listed here as the Knife Rights has led an effort to repeal switchblade bans or restrictions in 20 states, starting with New Hampshire in 2010. Repeals have since been enacted in Alaska, Colorado, Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and Wisconsin, which means that my automatic knives need to stay at home when I go to Vermont. But it still also shows that there is a lot of states, and I like this because it's one of those things of there's a lot of states that have like weird laws. Like if you're ever driving through New Jersey and you stop at a gas station to fill up and you hop out of your car like you would in any other state in America, and the attendant yells at you, tells you to get back in your car because you are not allowed to touch the gas pump in New Jersey. And you go, wow, that's a weird law. And we are definitely getting to the place where it used to be switchblades were just like, you'd see the guy with the switchblade in the movie. And that means he was a bad dude because he's just committing a felony right there just by the pocket knife that he's carrying. And it's gone from that to, now if you've got a switchblade ban, you're kind of one of the weird ones. So yeah, hopefully that's what that will go through, because otherwise we'll have to spend money and challenge it in the courts and win, because it's already said you get the right to keep and bear switchblades.
One of the nice things about my Florida permit is that it isn't a gun permit. It is a concealed weapon permit. And so regardless of whatever the rules are for Florida knives, and I know that there are some, because I have the concealed weapon permit, I can carry whatever length of knife I want, folding or not.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's neat.
Does that affect everything? Like, can you carry a blackjack or a collapsible baton?
I want to say yes, but I would need to look it up.
Well, there.
A concealed weapon or concealed firearm means a handgun, electronic weapon or device, so that's your taser/stun gun, tear gas gun, knife, or billy. By billy, I'm like 99% sure they mean a billy club. And while they don't specifically say that that's considered the same as a blackjack, I feel like that's covered.
Yeah.
If you can carry a length of stick to hit someone, you can carry a kosh.
Mm-hmm. One would hope.
Yeah. We're nicknamed the Gunshine State, and while it's not entirely true, it's close enough.
Yep. And also, you're also in a state in such that if an officer does, for whatever reason, discover a blackjack on you or something like that, a monkey's fist, you can just say, I've got my concealed weapon permit. And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Whether it is or it isn't, we don't have to cite you for this. It's paperwork. We don't want to deal with it.
But if you're a Floridian and you're listening to this, nothing I say should be considered legal advice, because I am not a lawyer.
All right, moving on, we have a law from Tennessee, which really, really likes this. Essentially, Tennessee now has its own Firearms Owner Protection Act, which is really, really nice, especially since there is a number of gun companies in Tennessee. Most notably, the recent move of Smith & Wesson into the state.
You mentioned Smith & Wesson's moves. Tennessee has a lot of gun companies, and that includes Beretta, Barrett, Troy Industries, and several others. But that's a pretty decent collection for a state.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see here. Yeah, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the organization that the anti-gunners think the NRA actually is, estimates the gun industry now contributes around 13,500 jobs with $3.7 billion in total economic activity and $7.5 million in tax revenue to Tennessee. So it's in Tennessee's best interests, not just philosophically, but economically, to protect these manufacturers. And one of the things that I really, really like about this bill is that it specifically says that if a judgment has been rendered outside of Tennessee and people try to collect on it or sue them, then not only is it not valid in Tennessee, but the people who are trying to collect will be liable for like 3 times the claim plus court costs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it says here, it is the public policy of the state to not allow recovery against a dealer, manufacturer, or seller of qualified products for qualified civil liability actions, other causes of actions resulting from or relating to criminal or unlawful misuse of qualified products by third parties, public nuisances, or market share theories of liability, which that one's a big one because that has been deemed federally as a loophole in the Firearms Owner Protection Act, is that many states are going after gun makers for so-called advertising issues, which itself is kind of shaky ground. But again, none of these cases have actually been successful or won, but they don't have to be because it's actually the suing part that's actually the what they're doing. They're making you lawyer up and defend yourself against them, and that does a lot of damage.
Yeah, we said it a lot, but the process is the punishment. Correct.
I mean, it was well documented. Lucky Gunner spent over $250,000 in a case against the Brady campaign and the Phillips family because the shooter in Aurora, Colorado bought his ammunition through Lucky Gunner, and they spent over $250,000 gearing up for a case that was dismissed because of the Firearms Owners Protection Act, the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, in pre-trial. So they never actually went to full-on trial, and it still cost them that much money. That's why this is a valuable tactic towards the gun prohibitionists, because you just need to spool it up and do it, and it costs them pennies because you get a pro bono lawyer, you just got to pay some court costs and that sort of stuff. You don't even need to try to win, and so therefore you don't need to spend that much money. Just make them be worried that you might be trying to win, and do that enough times you can bankrupt somebody.
Now, of course, just like Plaka, there is the exception that if you are doing something shady and illegal, you can be sued. Mm-hmm. This just prevents the lawfare aspects. And that's fair.
Yeah, and this is the law for everything. The gun prohibitionists like to say, oh, gun companies get special protections under this. No. Again, the great example is if someone is drunk driving in a Cadillac, GM doesn't get sued because their car was used in a drunk driving accident, and Budweiser doesn't get sued because their booze was used to get somebody drunk for drunk driving. Mm-hmm. It's both of those things are illegal, and it's not the product manufacturer's fault that someone's breaking the law or misusing a product.
Mm-hmm. So good job, Tennessee. Keep it up.
Yeah, and again, that's Smith & Wesson fled Massachusetts because they threatened. They didn't even successfully get the bill out of committee, but because they wrote a bill that said we're going to make it not only illegal to buy and sell so-called assault weapons in the state of Massachusetts, but also to straight up manufacture it. So if you are going to make it, and note that Smith & Wesson supplies a lot of guns to law enforcement in the state of Massachusetts. And so it's one of those, I guarantee that, there's a lot of M&Ps in holsters here, but also I guarantee that there's a lot of M&P 15s as patrol rifles in various police cars. And the idea they were going to say is, even making those even just to sell to law enforcement within the state, or to sell out of state, completely illegal. Can't do it. And so they immediately opened up a facility in Tennessee and said, cool, try to ban it again. We'll just leave completely. They're still making guns in Springfield, Massachusetts, but they have moved a lot of production down to Tennessee.
So Weer'd, we talked earlier about the Hearing Protection Act, but I'm hearing about a really interesting bill that is going to reduce the cost of suppressors.
Yes, there's a new bill. I believe it's a new bill and not part of the Hearing Protection Act. This is I just read this story as we were getting ready to start the show. But essentially this bill is designed to reduce the NFA tax imposed on suppressors from $200 to free. And so you would still need to go through all the work to get the tax stamp. I assume you would still also be getting a stamp on your paperwork. Just the stamp would be gratis.
But for the cost of free, I'll fill out that paperwork.
Yeah, it certainly is nice. And there's a lot to talk about with this one. Again, I point out we got to take a page out of our opponent's handbook on the any step in the right direction is a good one. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And so, yeah, I see nothing wrong with this. And I actually see some good with this as well, because not only does it make the buying a suppressor less expensive because you're not spending that money.
Well, it'll also reduce the cost of suppressors, because the reason they're marked up so high is because the tax stamp cost and process is a deterrent to a lot of people like me. And so they have to jack up the price in order to make money. And so if the tax stamp drops to 0, then you'll have more people buying, and they can reduce the price because they'll make it up in volume. So, yeah, win for us, win for them.
Yeah, there's also, yes, you're 100% correct. There's also something to be said about buying a $75 suppressor and paying a $200 tax stamp to actually take possession of it.
Yeah.
People would definitely be probably more willing, I'd like to buy something a little bit more expensive if I'm going to be spending over $200 no matter what. But another interesting aspect about this, and again, this is not something I'm holding my breath on at all, but one of the reasons why the NFA is actually allowed to exist, because there are laws, federal laws in place that state it's illegal to maintain a firearms registry. And the NFA was challenged on those grounds, and the courts ruled that the NFA is not a firearms regulation, but a taxing of firearms. And so this is a tax collecting thing. And so therefore the registry is simply just there just to confirm who has paid the tax and who is absconding for the tax. And so this was talked about when the pistol brace ban was pushed through, and I'm trying to remember if it was also the bump stock ban as well, but it was the pistol brace ban, where they were saying that you could in fact register your pistol as a short barreled rifle, and the ATF was going to waive the fee so long as you were going to do it. So, but a lot of people pointed out the fact that, hey, if you're waiving the tax, then this is just nothing but a gun registry, which I think was the whole point. But that will be, let's get this passed first, and then we can decide whether or not that legal avenue should exist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And just like with the other bills, this article says, call your, is it Congress critter? Is it senator?
It's U.S. House
representative.
So it's the House of Representatives. So yeah, your representative is the first person to get a call. But you know what? Also let the senator know, because if this passes the House, then they should be ready to go, and they also might be able to, especially within the same state, they might be able to talk to their colleagues and grease some wheels.
So this topic is a tonal shift, and I'm not going to be silly like I sometimes am, because David here is going to talk about a very sensitive subject, and that subject is suicide. So I hate to sound woke, quote unquote, but if talking about suicide is a trigger, you should skip this. But I think it's worth a listen.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. This is going to be a different type of content than my usual discussion of firearms, history, techniques, or humorous stories. Because last month, as of this recording, suicide touched my life once again. So in this segment, I'll be talking about awareness and prevention. The event that initiated my covering this topic occurred at the small gun shop where I work. While I wasn't there that day, I have talked to my coworkers who were, as well as seeing the post-cleanup area of the store. For reasons I hope are obvious, I will not be naming names or going into much detail. Basically, what happened was, a customer entered the store, asked to see a handgun, then distracted the employee by directing his attention to another item. In that brief moment, the customer loaded a single round he'd been concealing in his hand, dropped the slide, put the gun to his head, and pulled the trigger. I've seen what happens to a human head from a close-range gunshot. It's horrible. I can absolutely understand how much this event traumatized my coworkers. As I mentioned earlier, this was not the first time suicide impacted my life. When I was with the fire service, we went on a wellness check call one summer. Arriving at the home, we found the resident dead. He'd placed a shotgun under his chin and pulled the trigger, several days prior to our arrival. A few years before that incident, my cousin's longtime partner killed herself by way of an apparently intentional overdose. Family and friends immediately coalesced around my cousin to offer what comfort and support we could. After about a week, and with many assurances he was doing okay, we dispersed. The next day, my cousin went to a local beach and walked into the ocean. His body was recovered 3 days later in a fishing net. In high school, 2 of my friends, boyfriend and girlfriend, attempted to kill themselves using a combination of alcohol and pills. If his mother hadn't come home unexpectedly, found them, and called 911, they likely wouldn't have survived. There are many reasons people might choose the path of suicide. At some level, it frequently boils down to a loss of hope. If someone is truly determined, there's little we can do to stop them, but it's an obligation of those of us that care about them to try. Chain suicides, like with my cousin and his partner, are not unusual. Severing the link between those consecutive acts is difficult but possible. There are many resources available to both the person considering self-harm as well as their loved ones, including survivors in the instances they're successful. As Assorted Caliber's podcast has a Second Amendment focus, I feel it essential at the beginning of this list to promote Walk the Talk America. As it says on their website, they believe that by improving the quality and availability of mental health resources to gun owners, they can reduce suicide by firearm. Due to existing legislation in many states, gun owners are often reluctant to reach out for mental health care. They have a reasonable concern that an admission of psychological problems could lead to the state confiscating their firearms, in many cases with little or no possibility of recovering them later. In addition to Walk the Talk America, there are numerous other resources available, such as the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which can be reached by dialing 988. It's toll-free and confidential. A subset of this service is focused on veteran needs, and can be reached by dialing 988, then 1, or texting to 838-255 directly. Whether using one of the publicly available resources, a therapist, or a sympathetic friend, the most important thing is to talk to someone. Loneliness is right up there with hopelessness for initiating nihilistic thoughts. As has often been said, suicide is a permanent solution to a frequently temporary problem. It also hurts many more people than the one who commits that permanent act. The person who ends their own life is often attempting to put an end to pain, but they don't. They simply transfer it to other people. So please, if you or someone you know is considering self-harm, get help or assist them in getting help. Take care of yourselves and each other.
I haven't wanted to make this video because it's really hard and it's really sad to talk about suicide. And that doesn't mean that we don't talk about it.
So David mentioned 988 just to call, just like you would call 911, and you'll get a specialized operator just like the 911 system, but it's for self-harm and suicide. And I don't think we talk about it enough. And honestly, I had forgotten the number until David had mentioned it. I knew it existed, but I keep forgetting. And I will actually say, after I listened to this, I went out and was doing some yard work and was listening to the radio, and I heard several ads actually for this that I've heard before, but I ignore ads because it's not what I'm listening to. So they are getting out the word for it. But I decided I wanted to cook up a little mnemonic, is the fact that in the United States, obviously, we have 911, and I think everyone knows this one by heart. You may or may not know, but if you watch a lot of British TV, you may realize that they have 999. And so if you subtract the 11 from 911 and the 99 from 999, you get 988, which is the number. And if that helps you remember it, then more power to you. Also, I got to say, in the case of David's exact instance, and there's many other instances, I will just say to have, it's not all about firearms. I actually know a person who somebody jumped off an overpass, and specifically because they were driving a Chevy Suburban, they saw someone with a larger vehicle jumped off an overpass and landed in front of their car as a way of insurance. And I should hope that no one would want to end their life and would just choose not to do that. But if that is your choice and you've come into that choice, don't go involving a stranger or an unwilling friend in your suicide. It's just a bad move and a bad way to go about things. And, the poor guy at David's gun shop, who was the person who handed the firearm that they killed themselves with. Obviously, there's only so much that you can do, but I guarantee they're second guessing it and then just dealing with the fact that they saw it happen. Don't do that. And one other thing, if you are a Second Amendment supporter and you're thinking about ending your life with a gun, you're creating a statistic that will be used to push for gun control. And I actually specifically know of several trans people who have specifically used to stave off suicide, is the fact that there is the cruel memes that are done by anti-trans people on trans people, you just kill yourself, and note that, hey, if I choose to do this, I'm going to be playing into the hands of the people who hate me. And you know what? Mm-hmm. If spite's going to keep you alive, that's a good enough reason to be alive.
Yeah, when I first started seeing my therapist, and she asked me, I don't know that she specifically asked me, what's a reason for living, but it was something along those lines, and my answer was spite. There are far too many graves that I need to dance on. And so I'm not going to die. I'm not going to take my life because I need to outlive them. I need to win. So spite is the motivation. So Weer'd, you had it written in the show notes, but you didn't touch on it. And I think it's a great topic. And that is of consent. Now, I believe that if you don't own your body, you don't own anything. And so while you can talk about the theology and the morality of suicide, I believe that it is ultimately your choice, because, that is body autonomy and you own yourself. But if you do decide to do it, then don't inflict it on other people, because they aren't consenting to this and you are traumatizing them. So this is the ultimate, I can't really say the word on this podcast, but it is a jerk move. And so don't do it. I mean, don't commit suicide in general, but if you decide that you have no other option, don't traumatize other people. That just makes it so much worse. Mm-hmm. And finally, David listed a whole bunch of great organizations, but there was one that needs to be mentioned, and it was one that was introduced to me on this podcast when Weer'd interviewed the founder, and that is holdmyguns.org. And so this is an organization where if you are having thoughts of self-harm, instead of worrying about your firearms being confiscated, you can turn your firearms over to someone from Hold My Guns, and they will store them safely for you until you are in a better mental state to take them back. So add that to the list, and it is added in the show notes.
So, switching gears, last week I talked to NRA board member John Richardson, and this week I speak with another board member. In this case, it is Amanda Suffecool. I am pleased to welcome back to the Assorted Calibers podcast, Amanda Suffecool. And of course, as we all know, Amanda has been elected to the NRA Board of Directors, and I saw you in Atlanta. It was great to see you, Amanda.
It was great. It was great to see you, and it was great to be there.
Yeah.
You know, it was a pretty cool time.
Yeah, no, that was it was a really, really good show, and it really reminded me of the last time I was in Atlanta, which I think was the last time it was in Atlanta, 2016.
Oh, I can't remember. I do have an Atlanta story, but I don't remember what year it was.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of the show back then. So, which was before all of the drama that happened, starting in 2019. I mean, it started long before 2019, but really we got first wind of it, being a very serious thing in 2019, with, Ollie North, pushing for the vote of no confidence against, Wayne LaPierre, and everyone knows the saga going through, and so I really wanted to talk. I talked to John Richardson in last week's episode, and I also wanted to reach out to you since you are a friend of the show and available. Of what was your overall impression of the meeting this year?
Well, I think that the annual meeting is always so fun, and they call it the NRA annual meeting, and I call it the meeting of friends. So people from all over the country show up, and you meet them in hallways, and you meet them for dinner, and you meet them all over the place, and that in itself makes the trip worthwhile. And then when you put on top of it just all the happy faces and the kids, and I was carrying around an Eddie Eagle this time, and it was just looking at this is a family show, and it's so fun to kind of keep being reminded that truly that the Second Amendment is for everyone, and that includes moms and dads and all the littles too. No,
absolutely. And I was super amused by various things that you would see of the younger people out walking the floor, and I saw one guy reach up at the FN booth and pull down a P90. And I was just kind of chuckling about must be a Stargate fan, and then handed it over to his girlfriend, who was just a little too short to reach it, and wanted him to get it for her.
There you go. So somebody is the Stargate fan, right? Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Honestly speaking, the P90 is kind of the gun that unifies all, and if there's ever a machine gun amnesty, I guarantee that will be like the number one registered part besides AR auto sears.
Yeah, it's funny. We've had people come when we owned a gun shop. We've had people come in, and they're talking the names that are on video games of guns versus the names that are truly the names. And I was talking to one of the reporters, and I was like, I think it would be a really interesting story to do a crossover of what the younger generation or the gamers call something versus what it really is and what its history is.
No, absolutely. And also just the, video games and airsoft and all that is such a gateway into into the Second Amendment world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, so the actual, members and directors meeting, how did you feel that went for you?
Okay. So there's actually two meetings there in that sentence. And so the way that the annual meeting works is that there is on Saturday a meeting of the members. And so the members come, and all the board is encouraged to attend to hear the voice, in effect, the voice of the customer, to hear what is important to the members, to talk to the members and give them an opportunity to see a lot of board members all in one place. So if they want to stop you, see you, whatever, I make an exerted effort to wear my name tag everywhere, just not because it's look at me, but it's because, oh, I didn't know you were. And so let me ask you this, or let me tell you this, or let me, whatever that is, kind of open that conversation thing. So there was a couple things that came out of the meeting of the members that that were interesting. And there were some resolutions that didn't pass, but at the same time, in a couple of cases, they didn't pass more so because they were too all-inclusive as opposed to them not being a good idea. So like one of the resolutions that came from a member was saying that, we do not want a repeat of the Wayne LaPierre thing. And we do not want, the CEO, EVP to get involved in board business. The board needs to send the message and the direction to the EVP, and the EVP does not steer the board. And that part of the resolution was fabulous, was great, and was very supported. But then they went on to the second paragraph that then said, and to that end, no one on the nominating committee can talk to anyone else before they do the nominations. There's no communication, there's no anything. And it's like, you can't put a code of silence on a committee to, you're sitting there trying to find the candidates, to hold up for election, the slate, if you will. And you tell them that they're not allowed to talk to anybody about it. They're not allowed to talk to the people who know them. They're not allowed to talk to other board members. They're not, part of this is a small world. It's a small industry. And so if somebody's a jerk, somebody knows it. And if you don't ask, you may not find out until it's way too late. If somebody's got a history, somebody's got a something. And so that resolution actually failed more so because of that, because of where they went with the nominating committee and the overreach of the cone of silence than it did for the overarching message, which is we will not put up with the steering of the board by the operations folks. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And that's how the sausage is made. So that sounds promising. And you did hear some people supporting that the first clause, but not the second one.
Right. And so my advice to anyone who wants to write a resolution for the meeting of the members, because we want to hear them, and anybody who wants to do that, my advice to you is keep it simple, keep it one thing. If you are tempted to write, and then write a second resolution, right? Just keep them so that you're doing one thing, then you're doing another thing, then you're doing another thing, and things will pass and things will move forward, or things will be adjusted, but they won't just be thrown away out of hand. But when you do I've talked to Jeff Knox, and are you familiar with him?
Yes.
Okay, so I've talked to Jeff Knox, and he writes some resolutions and has for years that had really good content, but he had 17 different topics all in one thing. And so it was really easy for them to throw them away. And it's like, Jeff, shut up, right? Keep it short, block it out, one thing at a time, say it, and then go on, right? And so he and I laugh with each other about it. It was very friendly. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude with that, but it's like, look, you have really good ideas. Don't muddy them up with other things that somebody can take offense at.
No, that is a great point. And so overall, I mean, I think the big reason why I wanted to have you and I had John on was that obviously the NRA was in deep trouble the last few years. We were wondering whether they were even going to survive, and what a world where the NRA does not exist in American politics anymore.
What it was
and
gonna
really
be
just
like.
the shooting culture would look like. And it's one of those like, we could come up with some ideas of what, who would fill the void, but I don't think we have enough boots on the ground or organizations to fill the entire void that is the NRA. And it wouldn't be a monolith. It would be multiple people all trying to work together, which turns into the whole cat herding thing. So overall, my impression of the meeting and what I've heard and seen from people who were involved in the various levels of it is that things are starting to recover.
Well, yeah. So there's a couple points that you made in there. So the first one was, is the NRA going to survive? And the answer is yes. There for a while, we didn't know. And we didn't know because we were fighting for our very lives because Letitia James, her goal was to take the assets of the NRA and give them to other like-minded, air quotes there, like-minded organizations, like-minded as in gun safety organizations, and look at who markets themselves as a gun safety organization. Moms Demand Action, Everytown for Gun Safety, Bloomberg, those. And so think about how angry the NRA members would be if their dollars went to support those organizations. But that was the goal, was to defund us completely and do that. So we were fighting for our very lives. Because of that, we didn't stop doing the block and tackling that is the Second Amendment. Even though it seemed like it to people, what we stopped doing was anything that was not absolutely critical to life. And so we funded the Bruen decision, the largest Second Amendment decision to come out of the Supreme Court completely. It was the NRA's work, but we didn't market it. We stopped the marketing firm in 2018. When the lawsuit started, we reached out to them and asked questions, and they got, there's words that I cannot use on typical radio. So we'll just say PO'd, something cranky. And so it just turned into a mess. But think about any organization that could survive 7 years of no marketing, because that's where we're at. And in that void, other organizations stepped up and said the NRA is doing nothing. It's like, no, the NRA is still training. The NRA is still working. The NRA is still doing lawsuits. The NRA is still filing amicus briefs. The NRA is still, but we're not telling you about it. And so that was a big piece of this. And so in the shift to come back, that's one of the things we absolutely have to do, and is to get back the marketing. And to that end, it was like this year's The Voices of the Second Amendment that happened at the show floor in Atlanta was a step back to that, because we don't have NRA radio, we don't have NRA TV, and we don't have Ackerman McQueen, and we're not paying for ads and running ads. We have a magazine, and then we have pro Second Amendment voices. So let's use them, and let's give them a place that they can all centrally be at one point to blend and work and merge and build upon one another. And that's what we did.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, and I'm glad to see it. Because again, a world without the NRA would definitely be worse off, and it does appear, especially with all the reform candidates and all the people that are concerned about, say, the amount of power that Wayne LaPierre had within the NRA, is very, very good news.
Well, we're nipping, some of that power, pulling that back, doing some stuff there. So it's really kind of funny in the reformer thing, because people are like, well, the reformers came. So wait, this was 2025 election, in the 2024 election. So they were like, Four for Reform was the first four reformers. Actually, there was a group that was underground on the board that gathered the four reformers, that worked with the four reformers and got them on, right? So there was a welcoming committee when they got there, and they got there with pomp and circumstance and a parade of, here, we're the reformers. But there was a welcome wagon, if you will. And then this year, the amount of candidates that the reformer side had, or the NRA 2.0 had, and the fact that 20 of them were elected was pretty darn amazing. So last year, here's a couple things that a lot of people aren't picking up on, is that in the Wayne LaPierre era, the board meeting was you come in, you nod, you shake hands, you have lunch, a couple hours, and then you go home. And so some of the old guard was used to buying a plane ticket that left on Saturday at 2, which means they left the meeting at lunch. It started at 9. They left at lunch, right? Since I have been on the board, that has expanded and expanded to where the last 3 board meetings have run somewhere. I'm trying to think of how long it was. 16 hours. So maybe more. I didn't do the math. It starts at 9 a.m. and we ran past midnight. All the last 3. So the September meeting, we ran to 9 p.m. last year annual meeting. And 9:30, and I was like, wow, that's a long meeting. And then the September meeting, we ran till 12:30. Then the January meeting, we ran till 12:20. And then this meeting, we ran till 12:10. So we're getting shorter by 10 minutes at a time, but they're past midnight each and every time. So I think that one of the things, members are standing there looking at it and saying, I don't see any change. I don't see anything. And it's like, well, you're not going to see, think of it as a big ship. You're not going to see the ship stop going full speed ahead and shift into neutral and then stop it completely and then start to slowly back up and then start to turn around, right? You're not going to see it until it's turned clear around. But the success happens when you stop full speed ahead, when you actually get it stopped in the water, so you're no longer doing damage and you're no longer going down a path you don't want to go. And to me, I would say the absolute turning point was when the reformers, it happened in September, and there was a resolution that was on the floor that was written by the old guard to make it to where the NRA 2.0 reformers could not run an advertising campaign to run for the board, that they couldn't buy ads, that they weren't allowed to electioneer. And they pulled the resolution up, and we all jumped up to the mics to argue about it, to fight back. And they looked, and they did not have the votes. And so they could not force us to stop talking to our members, to talk to the world about the fact that elections have consequences and that we need their help and we need their vote to be able to get the 20 members that we got elected.
Yeah, that is really, really, really awesome. And so I guess actually here's a question I probably should have asked John last week, but I will ask you, and you are more senior to him because this is you've been have you been a full year now?
No, I've been on the board actually 2. I'm up for a re-election next year.
Okay, well,
so I just published my petition to be able to get people to do signatures. So if you do Facebook, go find my name, Amanda Suffecool, and sign my petition to get me onto the ballot. But yeah, so it's 2 headed. Now I'm starting into my 3rd year.
Yeah, and for those listening to the podcast, you can go down to the show notes, and there'll be a link to that there.
Oh, there. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But yes, so the big thing that we've heard is, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to say is Aaron and I definitely have recommended in the past that, if you're just having an annual membership on the NRA, when things were looking really bad, if you didn't want to renew, that's something to do. But I have always noted I'm a life member, and so it was no sense in me rescinding my membership. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't help anybody. And and as I'm feeling a lot more confident about things, I'm still a member. Hooray! But I would definitely say for sure, no doubt, like if you are a Second Amendment supporter, now would be the time to re-up your membership and all that. But now, would you say also now would be the time to start donating as well?
I would. So there's a couple things that I want to kind of say toward that. The Second Amendment is a machine that runs on money. And it really is, because we have to have a seat at the table. We have to have somebody speaking out. We have to have somebody fly across country and meet with the different states and and you're trying to say, does the Second Amendment apply on a federal level, or is it states' rights? And it really is that it's a constitutional right that is at the federal level. So these state laws need to be nipped in the bud, but you have to have money to do that. Mm-hmm. And we just recently found out, all of us just recently found out that we have been battling for years our own tax money being used in USAID to fund Bloomberg, to fund all of the anti-gun organizations that we then used our own money to fight back against. So it's been that. So we've turned that faucet off. Hopefully, it looks as if it is, and hopefully it's gone forever. So your dollars.
May I interrupt you real quick on that, because that's exactly what popped into my head, is the fact that yes, it absolutely is something that runs on money. In the fact that I would argue all of the gun control groups. I'll put the link to the show notes to my little conspiracy theory chat that that Bloomberg is actually behind all of the major gun control groups now, and has kind of silently moved in. But still, Michael Bloomberg is one of the richest men in the entire world. I mean, he's openly said to his buddy Warren Buffett, "There's no way that we're ever going to be able to spend all of our money before we die," and right. Meanwhile, he is also constantly petitioning for the end of the I think it's the Dickey Amendment, right? Yeah, that's that doesn't allow the CDC to push gun control. He's pushing for the end. They constantly are pushing to end that, and they're constantly they're doing things like, again, having USAID push funds in there. So if the richest man in the world is number one, getting money on the sly to run his group and his groups, and on top of that, also asking for more federal money, that's right. Saying a lot. There's a lot of cash that needs to go through, and 2A supporters ain't getting it.
Well, the interesting part, let's go down that rabbit hole for a second. Did you see the John Crump article about USAID and who's gotten money?
I saw some articles when it first came out. I don't know when it first came out.
Yeah. Well, here's the piece that I picked up out of that. And that was that Bloomberg and Bloomberg's agency had a budget of $13 million a year. And then USAID gave them 12.8 of that 13 million. So Bloomberg, rich as he is, only $200,000 worth of other money came in besides our tax money that funded it. That just put frosting on my cupcake, if you will. It was insane. But I think we'll see a shift because of that, because of how that money's drying up. You saw the David Hogg group. He had 16 employees. They closed down USAID, and he had to lay off 13 of his full-time employees. And then he's working at the Democratic. He's a vice president or vice chair of the Democratic National Convention, or the DNC or something. And he's trying to make their platform solely anti-gun and to fund his organization, because there is no more money coming any other way. So it's beautiful to watch that part, but it's infuriating is the fact that it has happened for years and we did not know it.
So if there's a little extra money jingling around in your pockets, or you were someone that regularly donated to the NRA but stopped, now might be the time to resume that.
Well, I'm a life member and have been for, I'm going to say 20 years. I don't know, something like that. 25 now, 21 maybe. I don't know, somewhere in there. God only knows how old I am. But I have now, because there is the benefactor, patron, and endowment levels. So I've now kicked up another level. So I am not yet benefactor. I think I'm patron. But so I'm, again, not only spending my time, talent, and treasure personally to be on the board, to do stuff, to be out there doing stuff. This year I ponied up another to bump up a level with the intent to hit the top level next year. So I don't ask people to do what I'm not doing, if that makes sense.
No, that is great. So thank you for all that you're doing. And of course, if you like what you're hearing from Amanda, go to the show notes and digitally sign, because now we can digitally sign petitions to.
That is a really, really cool a cool aspect of this is that we now get to do petitions. So I want to talk about that. If somebody has the belief that they have skills to be on the NRA board, and I say skills because it's not just want, need, and desire, but we need people to run for the board that bring skills to the board, because we have been in the past, we have been a pontificating from on high kind of board, and now we're a working board. So we're in the trenches and we're actually doing stuff. So we're looking for businessmen and turnaround people and accountants and marketing, and we're looking for people that not only have Second Amendment and they're not just standing there saying, okay, I will fight for my rights, but that I also bring other tools to help fight for rights. And if that's the case, we want you to run for the board. And you can run for the board by applying through the nominating committee. And you can do that by contacting the secretary's office and saying you're interested. They'll send you a packet, you fill out a resume, and you send it in, or by doing it by petition. But we're seriously looking for, what did the Army say? A few good men. Mm-hmm. We're looking for men and women that have skills and that can help us get in there, duke it out, and make the NRA what it once was, and survive another 154 years.
Yep. No, we have John Richardson was talking about how he was tapped for the auditing committee, and he has
Mm-hmm.
He has been doing various accounting work in his past life, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you've talked about you've helped companies recover from financial disaster as well in your past life,
Right.
haven't you?
Right. I did corporate turnaround from on the engineering level. So, so for me, it is, it's money, but it's also ideas and logic and team building and employee retention. And, because when you get a company that's in distress, which the NRA has been under attack for so long, that you have to do something to go in and interact with the employees. And because they are not just there for the Second Amendment, for my rights, they're there because they believe in it. They're willing to take the abuse that everybody wants to toss on them, but their mortgages and their kids' college and, everything else depends on it. So you're looking at, they're all in. And so there's a responsibility for the board and for people who are doing stuff to consider that, to pay some mind to that, because it really is important.
Well, that is awesome. And I had to throw that last little bit in there just in case the listeners didn't know that we really are in good hands with a lot of these reform candidates. And I am,
oh my gosh,
I couldn't be more excited.
This new slate of candidates, I'm like, oh, we've got lawyers. And the one that was to me the sleeper was Jack Hagan, general. And so he wasn't yet on the board. He was, a lady in waiting, if you will. So he was elected, but not yet signed in when the committee meetings happened. And he came early and he sat through the committee meetings. And so you have to sit at the back row, if you will. So sit at the table, or there's chairs around the perimeter. And I'll tell you, his mind and mine work very, very similar. So it was like, I'd say something and then he would jump in, and it was like, oh, I'm going to adore this man. I absolutely adore this man, and having him on the team. So it's really great.
That is awesome. So everybody check the show notes for all the pertinent links, and we will be talking to you again soon. Amanda Suffecool.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so the previous Atlanta NRA was not 2016. It was 2017, and I know that because NRA 2016 was before Pulse. And in Atlanta, I was interviewed by Cam Edwards about Operation Blazing Sword. And so it had to have been 2017. And also, that was the year that we stayed at the Airbnb house that was rented for Gunblog Variety Cast. And the last episode of Gunblog Variety Cast was like December of 2017. So, it had to be that year. This is how I remember things. Do I remember dates? No. I remember context like landmarks.
That is true. And actually, there was something I was thinking about Amanda's last line, leading up to things, and noting that one of the things that she mentioned, I mentioned about possibly this being the time if you had been donating in the past to the NRA and have stopped because of the corruption and problems that were going on with it, which is fully understandable. I mean, we recommended it.
Just at me next time, Weer'd.
But one of the interesting things that I just realized was one thing that you could do if you would like to start doing something good for the NRA, but would be much more beneficial is, as Amanda mentioned, get a life membership to the organization, because I will say that was super valuable for me, because it's one of those like, okay, the NRA's having some problems. I don't want to necessarily give them money and help them out with this money's going to be used for various corrupt things and stuff. But at the same time, as a life member, I don't have to pay them anything. I'm all paid up. And as soon as John Richardson said, "Hey, vote for me for the NRA board of directors," I'm like, "Oh, cool. I'm still a voting member." So yeah, if you get yourself a life membership, you'll be giving some valuable money to the NRA for them to use, and also get yourself a membership that can help you weather any storm.
It's the cost that does me in.
Oh yeah. I mean, they do have payment plans on them. So I'm trying to remember how much it was. And I don't know what's going on right now for the various payment plans, but it might be worth calling up to just to see what they can quote you.
I mean, I just remember that like pre-2019, it was well over $1,000.
Yes.
And the prices have only gone up.
Yep. But again, I think I was paying, like, $100 some a year, just every year until it was all paid out. So yeah, there's that. But Aaron, do you know who we like giving to all the time, every week?
You make it sound so very nasty. I'm sorry, listeners.
We give it to them in their ears.
You made it worse. Congratulations.
I did it on purpose. Thanks to each and every one of our listeners. I say this because I love you guys. Oh, but we have to give extra thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To be our Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACB film tracks, and the ACP Magdom.
It feels like you're slowly increasing the tempo every single time.
Maybe I am.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
You can get more from me at my blog, which is weerdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network. Excellent to be say on that one.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette. All one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
Yeah, in case you ever wondered, we do it live every single time. This is not pre-recorded. You'd think that we would by this point, but nope.
It's more fun this way.
Well, that's why I feel the need to change it up. And he is Largo, and I am Allegretto. Our time signatures are assorted, and so is our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.